welcome to Business Buzz. I'm here with Taylor Brooks today at his office, visiting with him. Taylor is the attorney with Brooks Stone Law and Counsel. Welcome, Taylor. Thanks for inviting
Thanks.
us in today.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity to have lunch with Taylor recently, and I learned a lot about Taylor and his background. But your law practice isn't your first career. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to pursue law and what was your first career path?
I got tired of depending on the economy. This is actually the first white collar job I've ever had. So most of my previous life has been blue collar work, and done general contracting work. I was a welder for several years in New Mexico and Texas, and traveled the majority of my 20s to many different states doing a lot of different things. And then one day had a conversation with somebody that hit me a little differently and convinced me to do something more with my life. So I went back to school, and ultimately law school is what brought me to Idaho, and been here ever since.
Yeah, excellent. Well, he's got a great story, so he's being modest about it. He's a real artisan with some of his ironwork and things like that as well. So, but Taylor, your firm emphasizes helping businesses avoid lawsuits rather than just fighting them. Coming from a business background, you're probably very aware of the impact that can have. What are some of the most common legal vulnerabilities that you see growing companies, and how those business owners proactively address before they become costly problems?
Yeah, so the most costly one is really lack of planning. Lawyers tend to be an afterthought. People tend to shy away from lawyers or don't like to think of them ahead of time when they do into business deals, and they're too excited. And I think some of them are a little apprehensive that some of us might be deal killers. But what I generally tell people is if a few questions from me up front destroys your partnership, I saved you a lot of money from a dispute later on. And the same is true with your business practice. If I take a look at your contracts and tell you that they're really not protecting you from anything, yeah, I may have cost you a little bit of money up front, but I've saved you a lot of money in the back end. And really the lack of planning or lack of forethought up front to bring an attorney inside to the business practice or to whatever the deal is just opening yourself up to a dispute, because people don't really know much about the legal industry. They don't know how the law works for them or against them, right? So lack of planning, I think.
Yeah, get that attorney on the front end to save you money on the back end.
Right.
If you need it on the back end.
Right.
So you've talked to me, and your website talks about your approach of analyze, fortify, and maintain framework. Can you walk us through what that actually looks like for a real business and how it changes the way they operate from day to day?
Sure. Yeah, so the analyze step, it's the three-step approach basically to a BrooksStone foundation, right? And my little tagline is every business needs a cornerstone, so make yours a BrooksStone. Analyze is my business analysis. That's my hallmark product, right? And what I really do is go into a business and audit them. I look at their internal policies, I look at their employment handbook, I look at their contracts, I look at just how they do business from a day-to-day standpoint. And then I give them a written memo of where they are vulnerable to litigation, where I think they have weaknesses or vulnerabilities, and where I think they have real risk. And then I advise them with recommendations on here's what you can do practically to shore up those risks or avoid some of those vulnerabilities. The fortify is enacting those recommendations, right? So we do better contracts, we do better employment handbooks, we do better terms and conditions, give them some strength in their website and how they carry out their business. But also it's really just giving them an upfront view of here's how the law can help you in your day-to-day. And then the maintain is the most consistent, or I should say most helpful part, and that's the ongoing counsel, right? If I give you a great contract, but I don't teach you how to use it, then the contract's only as good as your know-how and where and when to use it. So the maintenance is the ongoing counsel, and generally what I offer small businesses is 4 quarterly meetings a year. We sit down, I answer their questions, I look over the contract that I've done for them. I teach them how to use it, when to use some of the terms in there, and just, again, try to advise them on getting out of disputes early, or making sure that, early terse things don't become costly legal disputes.
Yeah. Problems that fester usually become much bigger problems.
Right.
Yeah. You've built a firm around the idea that the process of litigation can be more damaging. The process can be more damaging than the outcome. How has that perspective shaped the way that you advise clients and structure your services?
Well, it makes an easy sales pitch, right? If I tell somebody that an average lawsuit cost is between $50,000 and $100,000, but they can hire me for $5 to $6 grand up front to overhaul their business, that's a pretty good business choice, right? Spending $5 grand up front with me to save yourself 50, I'm 10% or less of what it's going to cost you in litigation. The real issue with litigation, though, to me, and what I've seen so much of in my career, especially with small businesses, is it's so cost prohibitive, right? And you mentioned process, and lawsuits are two things. They're merits and their process, but most attorneys only ever talk about the merits. They don't talk to clients about how long it's going to take you to get to prove those merits, and how much it's going to cost you to just go through the motions of a civil court case. And so those things are often really detrimental to clients where they really can't afford to go to trial. And so they really need proactive planning up front so that they can try to avoid that costly process.
Yeah. And the cost of just their time dealing
Right.
with this, and loss of being able to focus on your
Yeah.
normal business.
Yeah, or killing the dream, right? I've seen a lot of small businesses end up closing their shops and filing bankruptcy because they've been sued. And even if they've done nothing wrong, or if they've been sued for something silly, the process of fighting that is so expensive that they typically can't recover.
Okay. So, Taylor, what's the best way for our viewers to learn more about BrooksStone Law and Counsel, and how can they contact you?
My website is a great place to learn about what we do. I am very involved with the Meridian Chamber and with the Meridian community, so come see a lunch and learn. Follow my LinkedIn. I post all kinds of great hypotheticals and wild stories on there. But otherwise, contact me via email. That's the best way. I will always respond to email, whereas phone calls might take me a little while.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, Taylor's absolutely right. He's a great chamber member, and we are celebrating your ribbon cutting for joining the Meridian Chamber next week, Tuesday afternoon.
Yep, at 3:30 at Loose Screw Brewing.
Yep,
Super
absolutely.
excited.
So be sure and come by and visit and get to know Taylor at his ribbon cutting there in downtown Meridian. So we really do appreciate it. And thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting us in today, and
Thanks for coming by.
being able to learn a little bit more about your law practice.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming
excellent.
by.
Chamber friends, we've got some other upcoming events that you may be interested in. We have our Scholarship Awards Luncheon coming up April 28th. Tickets are still available for that. We've selected our 5 scholarship recipients this year. Come and enjoy a great presentation from the new president of the Northwest Nazarene University at that luncheon as well. And then First Friday, our next networking event is going to be at Grand Canyon University, the nursing college here in Meridian on May 1st. Meridian Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. Tickets are available for that event on May 14th. Be sure and get your ticket and join us for that. And then mark your calendars for State of the City, June 3rd, a signature event of the Chamber in the city of Meridian. Until then, Meridian, have a great weekend.